when my hairstylist stopped mid-cut and whispered, "Don't move. Act like everything's normal." I thought she'd made a mistake with my hair, but when she leaned closer and said, "That man who just walked in has been following you. I've seen him outside waiting 3 times this week." I realized the reflection she was watching in the mirror wasn't mine. It was his. And what I discovered in the next 20 minutes revealed that someone had been stalking me for months. And my stylist's observation saved me from a planned abduction. My name is Brooke Ashford. I'm 32 years old, and I'm a real estate agent in Nashville, Tennessee. The woman who saved my life was Nina Castillo, a hairstylist I'd been seeing for about 6 months at a salon in the Gulch neighborhood. We weren't close friends, just the friendly relationship you develop with someone who does your hair regularly. But Nina noticed something I'd completely missed, and her quick thinking and courage prevented what police later told me would have been my kidnapping, or worse. Before we get into this story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you all. I work as a real estate agent here in Nashville. It's a competitive market, and I've been doing this for about 7 years now after leaving a corporate marketing job that was slowly crushing my soul. Real estate is demanding work with crazy hours. I'm constantly showing houses, meeting new clients, managing listings, doing evening showings and weekend open houses. But I love the independence and the feeling of helping people find their homes. There's something really satisfying about handing someone keys to a place that's going to be filled with their memories. I live alone in a 2-bedroom condo in East Nashville that I bought 3 years ago. I was so proud when I closed on that place. Owning property in Nashville where prices just keep climbing felt like a real achievement. My younger sister Maya lives down in Memphis with her husband. She's a teacher, and we're really close even though we don't see each other as much as we'd like. We talk on the phone several times a week and try to visit at least once a month. Our parents retired to a small town in eastern Tennessee near the Smoky Mountains. It's beautiful out there, and I try to visit them every few months, usually bringing Maya along so we can make it a sister's weekend. I've been single for about 8 months now. I was in a 2-year relationship that ended because we wanted different things from life. I've been on some dates since then, but haven't really met anyone I'm excited about. Most of my social life revolves around work colleagues and a small group of friends from my old marketing days. I go to the gym 3 times a week when I can fit it in. I love trying new restaurants around Nashville, and I have season tickets to our local soccer team with my best friend Jordan. It's a good life, busy, but good. About 6 months ago, I started going to this salon called Style House in the Gulch. My previous stylist had moved to Atlanta, and a colleague at work recommended Nina Castillo. She said Nina was amazing with color and cuts, so I decided to give her a try. I've been seeing Nina every 6 weeks since then for highlights and trims. We developed that comfortable relationship you get with a good stylist, where you can chat easily about life or just sit in comfortable silence. Nina's in her late 30s, runs her own chair at the salon, and she always seems to really pay attention to details. She remembers things I mention about my life and asks follow-up questions the next time I see her. The day that changed everything was a Thursday in early October. I had a 4 p.m. appointment with Nina, and I'd squeezed it in between showing a property at 2 p.m. and meeting a client for dinner at 6:30 to discuss an offer they wanted to make on a house. It had been one of those crazy busy weeks with multiple showings, 2 closings, and some really difficult clients who couldn't make up their minds about anything. I was actually looking forward to that hour in Nina's chair as a break from the chaos. You know that feeling when someone else is taking care of you for once? That's what getting my hair done felt like. Just an hour where I could sit still and let someone else be in control. I had no idea that appointment was about to save my life. I had no idea someone had been watching me, learning my schedule, planning something terrible. And I definitely had no idea that my hairstylist was about to become the person who noticed what I'd been too busy and distracted to see. I arrived at Style House Salon right on time at 4 p.m., parking in the small lot behind the building like I always did. The salon was pretty busy with the late afternoon crowd. Several stylists were working with clients. There was pleasant background music playing, and that familiar sound of conversations and blow dryers created the typical relaxing salon atmosphere. Nina greeted me with a warm smile and a hug, and we walked back to her station near the back of the salon. Her chair was positioned so that when I sat down, I faced a large mirror that also reflected most of the salon behind me, including the entrance and the waiting area. We talked about what I wanted done today and decided on a partial highlight refresh and a trim to clean up my ends. Nina mixed up the color and started sectioning my hair, applying foils with those quick, practiced movements that come from years of experience. We fell into our usual easy conversation. I told her about my crazy week, this client who kept changing her mind about what kind of house she wanted, and my plans to maybe drive out to see my parents that weekend if I could get all my showings done. About 20 minutes into my appointment, while Nina was working on the foils in my hair, a man walked into the salon. I saw him in the mirror, just a quick glance the way you notice anyone entering a space you're in. He was a white guy, probably mid-30s, wearing jeans and a dark jacket, average height and build. Nothing about him stood out as particularly memorable or concerning. He walked up to the reception desk at the front and seemed to ask the receptionist something. Then he moved over to the waiting area and sat down in one of the chairs. He pulled out his phone and looked down at it like he was checking messages or scrolling through social media. I didn't think anything of it. Salons always have people coming and going, waiting for appointments or picking someone up. But I noticed that Nina had gone completely still. She was holding a foil and a section of my hair, but her hands had frozen mid-motion. Her eyes were fixed on the mirror, staring at the reflection of the man in the waiting area. The pause only lasted maybe 5 seconds before she started moving again. But something had changed. Her movements were tense now, almost mechanical, like she was forcing herself to keep working while her mind was somewhere else entirely. Then Nina leaned down slightly, bringing her mouth close to my ear, and whispered so quietly I almost didn't hear her. "Don't turn around. Don't react to what I'm about to tell you. Just act like everything is completely normal and we're having a regular conversation about your hair." My stomach immediately tightened with anxiety. Something was very wrong. I met Nina's eyes in the mirror and saw genuine fear there, barely concealed behind her professional mask. "What's wrong?" I whispered back, trying to keep my face neutral. Nina kept working on my hair, applying another foil, maintaining the appearance of a normal appointment. But her voice was tight when she spoke. That man who just walked in and sat down in the waiting area, the one in the dark jacket looking at his phone. "Do you know him?" I glanced at his reflection in the mirror, trying not to be obvious about it. He was still sitting there, head down, apparently absorbed in whatever was on his phone screen. "No, I've never seen him before in my life. Why? What's going on?" Nina's hands were shaking slightly as she sectioned another piece of my hair. "He's been here before, 3 times in the past 3 weeks. He doesn't make an appointment, doesn't ask for services. He just walks in, looks around the salon for a minute or two, then leaves. The first couple times, I didn't really think much about it. I figured maybe he was checking prices or looking for someone, or just confused about where he was supposed to be. But the third time he came in, which was last Thursday, I noticed something. He walked in, looked around the salon, and his eyes stopped on you. He just stared at you for maybe 10 seconds while you were sitting in my chair. Then he turned around and left without saying a word to anyone. It was weird enough that it stuck in my mind. And today, when he walked in just now, he did the exact same thing. He looked around until he spotted you. And now he's sitting in that chair watching you in the mirror while pretending to look at his phone. I felt ice run through my entire body. My hands gripped the arms of the styling chair. I looked at the man's reflection again, and now that Nina had pointed it out, I could see what she meant. His phone was in his hands, but his eyes kept flicking up toward the mirror, not randomly around the salon, but specifically toward my reflection. He was watching me. My voice came out shaky when I whispered back to Nina, "Are you absolutely sure? Maybe he's just waiting for someone and happens to be looking in this direction?" But even as I said it, I knew I was trying to rationalize something that felt deeply wrong. Nina shook her head very slightly while continuing to work on my hair, keeping up the appearance that nothing unusual was happening, I'm sure. And there's something else I need to tell you. Last week after your appointment, I was taking my break outside in the back alley where we all park our cars. I saw him again. He was standing next to a dark blue sedan, and he was watching you walk to your car. He didn't approach you or call out or anything like that. He just stood there watching you until you got in your car and drove away. Then he got in his car right after you left and drove off in the same direction you went. The fear that had been building in my chest exploded into full panic. Someone had been following me, watching me, learning my patterns. Why didn't you tell me this last week when you saw him? Nina's voice was apologetic but firm. Because I wasn't completely sure what I was seeing. I thought maybe I was being paranoid or reading too much into coincidences. But him being here again today, sitting there watching you again, I know something is seriously wrong. We need to do something right now, but we can't let him know that we've noticed him or that we're on to what he's doing. I forced myself to take slow breaths, trying to stay calm and keep my expression neutral. In the mirror, I studied the man more carefully. He looked so ordinary, so unremarkable. That's what made it even more terrifying. He could be anyone. He could blend into any crowd. What should we do? Nina was quiet for a moment, still applying foils to my hair with hands that trembled slightly. I'm going to finish applying this section of color, so it doesn't look suspicious if he's paying attention to what we're doing. Then I'm going to walk up to the reception desk like I'm getting supplies or checking on my next appointment, and I'll tell the receptionist very quietly to call 911. You're going to stay right here in this chair. Don't get up, don't try to leave, and definitely don't go anywhere alone. I know the salon has a back exit that leads to the parking lot, but I don't want you using it because we don't know if he has someone else positioned out there. We're going to wait right here for the police to arrive. I nodded slightly, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Nina applied 2 more foils, taking her time, making everything look completely routine. But before she could move toward the reception desk, the man stood up. My breath caught in my chest. I watched his reflection in the mirror as he walked toward the salon exit. Relief started to flood through me. He was leaving. Maybe Nina had been wrong. Maybe this was all just a weird coincidence. But then he stopped. Right at the door, he stopped and turned around. He looked directly at the mirror, directly at my reflection. Our eyes met in the glass, and he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile or an embarrassed smile like someone who'd been caught staring. It was cold and deliberate and knowing. Then he pulled out his phone, held it up, and I watched in the mirror as he took a photograph of me, sitting in the salon chair with foils in my hair. He took a picture like he was documenting me, like I was part of some collection he was building. Then he turned and walked out of the salon, the door closing behind him with a soft chime. The entire salon seemed to freeze. Nina dropped the foil she'd been holding and immediately rushed to the reception desk. I could see her talking urgently to the receptionist, her hands moving in quick gestures. The receptionist's eyes went wide, and she immediately grabbed the phone and started dialing. Other clients and stylists had noticed that something was wrong now. Conversations stopped. People were looking at Nina, at me, at the door where the man had just exited. Nina came back to my chair, her face pale but determined. She's calling the police right now. They'll be here as fast as they can. I got his license plate number. I've been writing it down every single time I've seen his car here. I was shaking uncontrollably now, the reality of what was happening crashing over me in waves. Nina, I need to tell you something. For the past 3 weeks, maybe longer, I've had this feeling like someone was watching me. Not all the time, but sometimes when I'd be leaving a house, showing or unlocking my car, or walking into a restaurant. Just this uncomfortable, prickly feeling on the back of my neck. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid, that I was just stressed from work and spending too much time alone in empty houses. But what if I wasn't imagining it? What if he's been following me this whole time and some part of me knew it? Nina pulled a stool over and sat down next to me, putting her hand on my arm. Trust those instincts. They're your brain picking up on things your conscious mind hasn't fully processed yet. Has anything else unusual happened in the past few weeks? Any weird phone calls, strange messages, people showing up at properties who seemed off? I thought hard, my mind racing back through the past month. Then something clicked. Yes. About 2 weeks ago, I had a showing scheduled at a house in Brentwood. It was supposed to be a private showing with a potential buyer who'd contacted our agency through the website. I drove all the way out there, unlocked the house, waited for 30 minutes, but they never showed up. When I tried calling the number they'd provided, it was disconnected. At the time, I just thought it was a flaky client or maybe someone who'd changed their mind. But what if it was him? What if he was trying to get me alone in an empty house? Nina's face went even paler. That's exactly what he was doing. Testing to see if he could get you isolated. The receptionist came over, her expression serious. Police are on their way. They said to stay inside, keep the doors locked, and don't let anyone leave until they arrive. Nina immediately stood up and walked to the front door of the salon. She locked it, flipped the sign to "Closed for emergency," and pulled down the shade over the glass door. The other stylists and clients were watching now, several people asking what was happening. Nina addressed the whole salon, her voice steady despite the fear I could see in her eyes. Everyone, we have a safety situation. There was a man in here who has been acting suspiciously and potentially following one of our clients. We've called the police and they're on their way. No one leaves until they get here. If anyone recognized that man or has seen him before, please tell me right now. One of the other stylists, a young woman with purple hair named Jade, raised her hand hesitantly. Was he wearing a dark jacket and jeans? Brown hair? Average height? Kind of forgettable looking? Nina nodded quickly. Yes, exactly. Have you seen him before? Jade looked sick. He came in about 2 weeks ago when I was working the front desk during lunch. He walked up and asked if you worked here, Nina. He used your name specifically. I thought he wanted to book an appointment with you, so I said yes, and asked if he wanted to schedule something. He said no, he just wanted to confirm that you worked here and what days you usually worked. Then he asked what time you usually had your last appointment of the day. I told him you typically book until 5 or 6 p.m. depending on the day. He thanked me and left. I thought it was weird but figured maybe he was planning to surprise someone with a gift certificate or something. The room went silent. My stomach turned over. He wasn't tracking Nina, I said quietly. He was tracking my appointments with Nina. He figured out my schedule through the salon. He knows I come here every 6 weeks on Thursday afternoons. Nina's hand tightened on my shoulder. But he doesn't know that we figured out what he's doing. And you're safe right now. The police are almost here. Police arrived within 7 minutes. 2 patrol officers who came in with serious expressions and immediately started taking statements. I told them everything. The feeling of being watched for weeks. The failed showing in Brentwood. The general sense of unease I'd been dismissing as work stress. Nina described seeing the man multiple times at the salon, watching him follow me to my car, the way he'd stared at me and taken a photo today. Jade added her story about him asking for Nina's schedule. The officers took notes on everything, asked for detailed descriptions, and Nina provided the license plate number she'd written down. One officer went outside to check the area while the other stayed with us. After about 15 minutes, the officer came back inside and spoke quietly with his partner before approaching me. Ms. Ashford, we ran the plate number your stylist provided. The vehicle is registered to a Marcus Duval. That name mean anything to you? I shook my head. No, I've never heard that name before in my life. The officer exchanged a look with his partner that made my blood run cold. Marcus Duval was released from prison 8 months ago, after serving 6 years for stalking and assaulting a woman. His victim was a real estate agent in Atlanta. He's been violating his parole for the past 3 weeks. We've been looking for him. The room started spinning. I grabbed the arm of the styling chair to steady myself. He's done this before. He attacked someone who did the same job as me. The officer nodded grimly. Yes, and based on everything you've told us about the failed showing and his pattern of behavior, we believe he was planning to do it again. Detectives are on their way. We need you to stay here while we coordinate with other units. Is there somewhere else you can stay tonight besides your home? We don't know what information he has about you, and we don't want you going anywhere he might know about. Within 2 hours, the salon became the center of a full criminal investigation. Detectives arrived with laptops and files. interviewing everyone who'd been there. They showed me photos on their computer, asking if I recognized anyone. The third photo made me feel sick. It was the man from the salon, Marcus Duval, but in a mugshot from years earlier. We found him, Detective Harrison told me after stepping aside to take a phone call. He's been staying at an extended stay motel on the outskirts of Nashville, paying cash under a fake name. We executed a search warrant on his room about 30 minutes ago. What they found in that motel room still gives me nightmares. Marcus had been documenting my entire life. There were printed photos of me leaving my condo building, walking into my real estate office, showing properties to clients, eating at restaurants. He had copies of my professional bio and headshot from my agency's website. He had a detailed list of properties I'd recently shown with addresses and showing times. He had pages of handwritten notes about my routine, including Thursday 4 p.m. hair appointment, Style House Salon, stylist Nina Castillo. The detective showed me photos of evidence they'd collected, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. We also found evidence of multiple fake showing requests he submitted through your agency's website, Detective Harrison explained. He used different names and email addresses, trying to set up private appointments with you at empty properties. Your agency's screening process caught most of them because the contact information was suspicious, but one got through. The Brentwood showing 2 weeks ago where nobody showed up. That was him, testing whether he could get you alone. Marcus Duval was arrested and charged with stalking, parole violation, and attempted kidnapping. The evidence was overwhelming. His prior conviction for attacking a real estate agent in Atlanta, combined with the documentation in his motel room and testimony from Nina and the others at the salon, built a case that his lawyers couldn't fight. At his trial 7 months later, I had to testify. I sat in that courtroom and described the weeks of feeling watched, the unease I'd dismissed, and the terror of realizing someone had been planning to hurt me. Nina testified too, explaining how she'd noticed Marcus coming into the salon repeatedly, how she'd seen him watching me, and how she'd trusted her instincts enough to intervene. The prosecutor called Nina a hero. The judge agreed. Marcus Duval was sentenced to 18 years in prison. When the verdict was read, I cried in the courtroom, not just from relief, but from thinking about how close I'd come to being his second victim. If Nina hadn't been paying attention, if she hadn't remembered seeing him before, if she'd talked herself out of saying something because she worried about seeming paranoid, I would have walked into one of his traps. The detective told me later that based on Marcus's notes and patterns, they believed he would have made his attempt within the next week at one of the fake showings he'd scheduled. My life changed completely after that day. My real estate agency implemented new safety protocols for all agents. Mandatory check-ins before and after showings, buddy systems for isolated properties, better screening for appointment requests, required GPS tracking during work hours. I now automatically share my location with my sister Maya and my friend Jordan whenever I'm showing properties. I take self-defense classes twice a week. I carry pepper spray. I vary my routines and don't go to the same places at predictable times anymore. But the biggest change was learning to trust my instincts. For weeks, I'd felt like something was wrong, like someone was watching me, and I'd rationalized it away as stress and paranoia. I've learned that those feelings are your brain processing danger signals before your conscious mind catches up. Now, when something feels off, I pay attention. My relationship with Nina went from professional to deeply personal. She saved my life through simple observation and the courage to speak up. We're real friends now, meeting for coffee outside the salon, celebrating holidays together. I've referred countless clients to her, and I always tell them the story of the stylist who noticed what I couldn't see. Nina says she was just paying attention to her surroundings, but I know it's more than that. She trusted her gut, even when it would have been easier to dismiss her concerns, and she acted immediately when she confirmed something was wrong. The hardest part of processing everything was accepting how many other people had potentially noticed Marcus, but hadn't said anything. A security guard at my condo building later told police he'd seen the same man in the parking lot multiple times, but assumed he was a resident. A colleague at my office remembered him standing in our lobby once, looking at the wall of agent photos, but thought he was a potential client. A barista at my regular coffee shop vaguely remembered him sitting by the window multiple times, positioned where he could watch the door. All these people had pieces of the puzzle, but nobody trusted their instincts enough to mention it to anyone. That's what could have cost me my life. Not that Marcus was clever or invisible, but that all the people who noticed something off didn't believe their own observations enough to act. I now speak to groups of real estate agents and other professionals who work alone, sharing my story and teaching safety protocols. I emphasize the subtle warning signs I'd dismissed and the importance of listening to that inner voice that tells you something's wrong. I talk about building relationships with people you see regularly because they might notice patterns in your life that you can't see yourself. And I celebrate Nina as someone who did everything right. She observed, she remembered, she trusted her instincts, and she acted. Those simple things saved my life. Here's what I need everyone watching this to understand. The people around you in your daily life, the ones you interact with regularly, but might not consider close friends, they might see things about your safety that you're too close to notice. Your stylist, your barista, your mail carrier, the security guard at your building, they observe patterns and notice when something doesn't fit. Listen when they express concern. Take them seriously when they tell you something seems wrong. Nina wasn't family or a close friend. She was someone I saw for an hour every 6 weeks, but she paid attention, and that attention saved me from being abducted or killed. If you work alone, meet strangers as part of your job, or have predictable routines that are publicly visible, take extra precautions. Vary your schedule when possible. Screen clients carefully. Tell people where you're going and when you'll be back. Share your location with trusted contacts. Build real relationships with the people in your regular routine because they might be the ones who notice danger before you do. And most importantly, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't talk yourself out of that feeling. Don't worry about seeming paranoid or dramatic. Your safety is worth more than social comfort. If this story made you think about awareness and safety differently, hit that subscribe button right now and leave a comment with your thoughts. We need more people like Nina in the world, people who pay attention and have the courage to speak up even when they might be wrong. Thank you for watching, and please look out for each other. The person who saves your life might be someone you barely know, who simply chose to notice and act.